Welcome, everyone. It's great to see you. Thank you for being here. Um, it's a lovely early summer's evening here in the north of England. I'm imagining what the view might be from your window across space and time. So just before we sit and to, in a way, remind us why we sit, I'm going to read some words from Suzuki Roshi, and then we'll move into our 10 minutes of sitting together. Suzuki Roshi said, "To feel your being here in this moment is a very important practice. To feel or to be yourself at a certain time in a certain place, that is why we practice our way." So let's say the verse of the robe together, please. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. So welcome again. Today I'd like to reuse a few of the quotes I've used in some of my recent talks, but in a different way and in a different context. They're still very much alive and present in my practice. I'm going to be making a different meal with different flavors with some of my ingredients. So the piece that I read from the beginning of our sitting, to feel your being here in this moment, is a very important practice. To feel or to be yourself at a certain time, in a certain place. That is why we practice our way. And I've lived with this statement for some time, but I couldn't remember in what context Suzuki Roshi shared it. And then I found it, and it's actually in the context of ritual and ceremony. He said, I want you to do ceremonies until you are sure of your response to other people. You will find yourself in various situations, and you will know intuitively what you should do. It can sound quite counterintuitive to think that if you engage in ceremony, you might become more responsive to other people and more intuitive. So I've been very curious about that statement and that it occurs with the statement I read to you earlier. I have a 3.5-year-old grandsons, Jesse and Kit, and they live near the sea, and they like watching a program called Saving Lives at Sea, which is a documentary about the various rescues that take place off the coast of the UK. And they like playing Saving Lives at Sea. So our rug becomes the sea, and the sofa becomes the lifeboat. And I think every member of the family has been saved from a disaster at sea recently. And they sometimes wrap you in a blanket, and they check you over to see whether you need any further treatment. And just recently, they found some plasters. I think they're called Band-Aids in the United States. And they went around various family members putting plasters on these injuries that we had from being at sea. And I identified an injury on my head, just here. And they both wanted to put the plaster on, which is what usually happens. So I said, okay, Kit, you put the plaster on, but be very careful because it's going to hurt. And Jessie, you can hold my hand and say kind things. So I had Kit putting the plaster on my head, and Jessie was ready to say kind things. And as he did that, he said, I love you. last year, Rushin Paul Haller went to the memorial service for Hiroshima in August, and he wrote this. It reminded me of what I already knew and helped me think of the notion of knowing what you already know. Sometimes when we approach practice, we think, well, I need to know. Maybe we don't. Maybe there is something in us that already knows, something in us that's living the human life, and our challenge is to remember. And very interestingly, the Pali word for mindfulness is sati, and the root of that word is remember. Remember what you already know about being who you are. Remember what you already know about not being selfish, caring for others. Remember what you already know about belonging. We remember these basic things that we have known probably since we were 7 years old, and maybe before that too. Perhaps, I'm saying, at 3.5. So perhaps our practice, as much as anything, is a profound remembering. Remember what we already know of being who we are. We come to practice with all sorts of ideas about Buddhism, what we want to learn, of our curative fantasies, and quite often we actually just remember what it is to be our essential selves. So we come to practice and we're asked, just become intimate with the bell, hold the space for everyone and support them to follow the schedule, or just care for the zendo, or just cut the carrots. And during one retreat in Switzerland, I remember that Flint said to our dear friend Mark Gray, you can sit there so you can watch out for everyone. And Mark said, what am I watching out for? And Flint said, just watch out. Lungtan, who was a disciple of Dawu, was very concerned about his progress on the path. He said to Dawu, since I came, I have not received any essential instructions on the mind from you, Master. Dawu replied, ever since you came, I have not ceased for a moment to give you essential instructions about the mind. More mystified than ever, Lungtan asked, on what points have you instructed me? Dawu replied, whenever you bring me the tea, I take it from your hands. Whenever you serve the meal, I accept it and I eat it. Whenever you salute me, I lower my head in response. On what points have I failed to show you the essence of mind? Many years ago, when I was teaching in secondary school, I was on bus duty with the head teacher, and the pupils, who ranged from 11 to 16-year-olds, were filing out towards the bus. And I said, so many of these young people just look depressed when they leave school. Is there something that we could do to provide more joy and more relevance to their education? And he thought about it and he said, well, come to me with an idea. And I did. So we chose 15-year-olds who were having difficulty at school and were at risk of exclusion or we invited them to be in a group which we created, which conventionally would be called developing life skills. So we approached them, and I think there was something significant in that they were chosen. We love to be chosen, don't we? So I chose them, and they chose me. So that was the first, in a way, the first threshold we crossed. And it's very unusual in a compulsory education system to have that kind of choice. Um, so we um, we kind of dived into the creative chaos that you can imagine with 15-year-olds co-creating something together. And one of the things we did was to invite community groups to come to be with us for afternoons. And we explored how it would be to greet somebody at the school door, how it would be to escort them through the corridors. We made refreshments. We prepared a welcome speech, and they prepared sometimes a play to show to the visiting group. So we were doing things that I thought of as conventionally life skills, but actually, now I reflect on it, we were creating caring for each other and ceremony, caring for each other and ceremony. So when it came to the end of our time together, the end of the 2 years, I went into the room on the final day, and they had prepared a party for me, and they'd collected money and trusted the people who went into town to buy the presents, to buy the present for me. They'd made cakes, they'd arranged the room, and someone made a short speech of appreciation. They engaged in ceremony. And I think they did it out of love and care. And if I think about what I offered them, is I probably offered them someone to care for and love a little bit, who had been through this whole process with them. And it was a very beautiful occasion, because they were offering back to me what I'd offered them. And the party lasted for an hour, and it went well for 20 minutes. And afterwards it was chaos, because they couldn't hold the form for very long. But it was a very beautiful thing, and we were used to, in some ways, the creative chaos that ensued. So Flint said recently during an inquiry, if someone asks you what is the essence of Soto Zen, this is what you tell them: simply taking care of things and ceremony. And I'm really curious about how we, as people who aren't in monasteries, and quite often not in zendos or in practice communities, how we actually extend the idea of ceremony into our lives with our loved ones and people in our community. And one place I'm going to mention today is the checkout in a supermarket. Because all of us, I imagine, here today, at some point go to a supermarket. So just as in a ceremony, you can pay attention to being in the food hall, how you place the precious food on the conveyor belt, how you greet the checkout clerk, how your eyes meet momentarily, and how you place the food in your bag. It's not about being performative or weird. Nobody should know your intention, but there is a kind orientation to actually meet the situation with attention. Flint said recently, it's in some ways really difficult to change who we are, but we can do something about our activity, how we lift a cup, open a door, lay a table, chop a carrot. All of those things are within our conscious choice every moment if we actually turn to them. So Nick Cave, who is a well-known musician. Um, his son died, and a number of years ago, and he was having an interview with Andrew O'Hagan, and he talks about actually the ceremony of buying food in Infinity Foods in Brighton. He says, there's a vegetarian takeaway place in Brighton called Infinity, where I would eat sometimes. I went there the first time I'd gone out in public after Arthur had died. There was a woman who worked there, and I was always friendly with her, just the normal pleasantries, but I liked her. I was standing in the queue, and she asked me what I wanted, and it felt a little strange because there was no acknowledgement of anything. She treated me like anyone else, matter-of-factly, professionally. She gave me my food, and I gave her the money, and sorry, it's quite hard to talk about this. As she gave me back my change, she squeezed my hand purposefully. It was such a quiet act of kindness, the simplest and most articulate of gestures, but at the same time it meant more than all that anybody had tried to tell me, because of the failure of language in the face of catastrophe. She wished the best for me in that moment. There was something truly moving to me about that simple, wordless act of compassion. I'm wondering if the spaces we have for connection publicly are becoming more rare. Because in a supermarket now in the UK, and I think you must have the same in the United States, we have the self-checkout, where you just go to check out your things without meeting anybody unless the machine goes wrong. The self-checkout sounds to me like what you do when you die unaccompanied. The self-checkout. Jakusho Kongroshi said when he was younger he had cancer, and he said he wasn't ready to die with all beings. But now that he's been practicing for many, many, many years, he feels more ready to die with all beings, not alone. When we have inquiry in person, there's a particular way that it happens. So the person offering inquiry, usually Flint, he will hear someone lift a chair, the sound of their footsteps, their breathing, them coming into view, sitting down and settling before engaging. So the kind of ceremony of inquiry and the particular task of perceiving each other is helped by that pause. Catherine Thanas says, we seem to need pauses around things. Before I begin my talk, I settle myself on my cushion, just as you have settled yourselves, and then we chant. Chanting is a ritual pause. It is also an activity complete in itself. If I begin to speak immediately after entering, you might not be ready to listen, and I might not be ready to speak. Readiness takes time, time that is readiness to wholeheartedly and undividedly be here. I'm curious about the process of the ceremony of online inquiry, because the speed with which we move from being actually in the group to being with the person who's offering inquiry is really quick. And what happens is there's two people, perhaps thousands of miles from each other, suddenly on screen. And I think there's so much happening in that moment because there isn't that lead up process. And I really appreciate how Flint tunes so skillfully and so quickly to somebody appearing on screen beside him. So I'm kind of aware of, from this talk, through ceremony around pauses as well, and actually the particular demand of inquiry that we have here, and how we care for it as a ceremony of inquiry together, and attune to each other when we meet as best we can. So if you would like to take part in the ceremony of inquiry today, I would really welcome being with you and sharing this precious space. Thank you.
I'll put Mary beside you, Josh.
Thank you. Hey, Mary. Good to see you.
So I'm just going to let my eyes connect with you. I just, with a lot of gratitude, appreciate what you're talking about, how these connections, to settle into them, take time. One of the things that I'm just noticing, I'm going to just preface this, is I just went to a 45-year reunion of connecting with people that some of which I hadn't seen in 45 years, and that settling in of just amazing how we did this dance and then were able to go so deep. It was at a boarding school that I had gone, and so this was formative years of being together. And I'm wondering if you could speak to then, like, once this is forged and we've come together, and what I'm noticing now is the pulling away of, and the profound sadness, sorrow of just sort of the accordion of the, I mean, it's like the breath in and out. And as I'm exhaling, it's, yeah, these connections and disconnections, if you, the pause afterwards too. I don't know if that I'm making sense in what I'm
Yeah,
inquiring about.
what a great question. Yeah, because I was talking, in my talk about how we meet, like now, and then how do we adjust when we move apart?
Mm-hmm.
I guess there's it will bring up all that it does. Meeting just brings up so much, particularly if you haven't seen people for all these years, and there's a heightened kind of energy. And then what happens to our mammal being when we move back? I guess there's something about being really honoring it, being kind with that, whatever arises as we release.
And perhaps that's that sense of the in and out of both the like, I'm looking at a light and I just like plugged in and just, and these connections, it was like it just lit me up and I'm so full. And then it just feels like the plug has been pulled and there's a dimming down of that. And is there a way of just in the heart to hold that? Well, I'm doing my own sort of, yes, that sense, the birth and death even of that.
Well, I'm just thinking what would I do? Because I would feel that reunion very intensely and very fully.
Yeah.
And yes, I would want to allow myself to feel everything fully and be to honor it, and to know that
Yeah.
it has its joy and its sorrows.
Yes. Yes. It just is an amazingly profound, when you're 15, 16, when you're growing up, and it just,
Yeah, I can feel it will have been so much because we. There's also a question, who are we? If
mhm,
who am I now?
mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
who was I? And yeah,
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
those wonderful things about people we've held in our hearts all these years.
Yeah.
And we just see them maybe just that once. Um, and
Okay.
it's yeah, it's I really get that. I can feel how it's kind of moved through you. Beautiful question. Um,
And also I'm noticing too, just my heart is really open and impacted, and so I'm grateful for that. But
hmm,
thank you.
yeah, it's lovely to meet you. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Hi, Pam.
This was so beautiful. I know the right words for it. Maybe.
So I'm feeling what you're feeling, but your sound is breaking up a little bit. So I'm I'm kind of really with you, but I can't hear you.
I'll see if I can talk a little louder so that maybe you can
I
hear me.
can,
Okay. Okay. Um, I have in my life point where, well, all that you were talking about is so recognizable and something that I've yearned for and gotten little snippets of here and there, but I've never been able to hang on to it. I mean, in a grasping way, but it will come in. And it's like I've not been able to make it a permanent thing in my life for various reasons. Um, but I've come to a point where I can't stand to live without it anymore.
mm,
So I'm doing the transition between life as has been and life as I want it to be because I want to experience this. I want to live like this
mm,
while I'm still living. I don't want to do my life without this. This is like the um and as I was listening to you putting it into words and um recognizing the huge value of it, it just somehow makes it easier for me to see a way forward.
mm,
I just wanted to say thank you for that.
mm,
And if you have any words going forward, those are certainly welcome. Um, Not just the gratitude for hearing you talk about them, the just um, with which you always and the reverence for people.
mm.
I'm
Yeah. I mean, I love hearing your longing. It feels feel that experience of longing is sometimes really what we have. It's because we feel something in the longing and beyond the longing. And I think sometimes what I'm sensing from you is the beauty of your of kind of what you want to bring into your life. And I guess for me, it's something about really taking care of, of that um, essential kind of orientation that you have. 'Cause I can feel it. Um, you're expressing it. It touches me. Oh, thank you. Hi, Bridget.
Hello, good evening there.
Good evening.
It's good to be with you. I too was very touched, particularly in how you were able to give one of your grandsons an important part while not having them each trying to stick a Band-Aid or plaster on your head. That moved me very much because it showed you could be both and. And I struggle with parts of myself where I feel like I can't be enough for someone in a situation. And so I take a sort of clear, direct tone, stepping back. Um, and but I have a history of having, difficulty setting boundaries. And I'm curious if you have ideas on how, just as that person reached out to him and gave him a squeeze, which in a sense is a connection ceremony, which is, I see you, I acknowledge your presence, while at the same time having clear limits about what you can and can't do. Can you give some wisdom there, please?
Well,
I'm so uncomfortable even saying this. My mouth has gotten dry because I don't want to admit my vulnerability.
oh, take some time to have some refreshment. Yeah, I mean, I think the teaching from Suzuki Roshi, is a great one because it invites me to as somebody who's quite often not in a zendo, or I've not been in a monastery, to actually look around and see what's possible, um, and and um, and I think that's the adventure, to look around, and sometimes there's something happens. You see somebody look at you, or you see somebody who needs just that exquisite touch that Nick Cave was describing. It's very small, isn't it? It's very potent. It doesn't need to be anything, massive. It's kind, and it's so there's like the possibility of really going out and looking at the world and seeing where it wants to meet you. It's hard, because I think we we go to places and we aren't present. It's very easy not to be present in a supermarket because we want to get things done. We want to buy food, and we don't we don't pause and listen and look, and when we can, we don't think it's something we should do. So it's like it's a bit countercultural to go into a supermarket and look around at people and wonder at the multitude of food on the shelves and people working to fill the shelves. And I guess it's something about wonder, like warmly wondering, maybe.
Okay, thank you.
So how does that land for you?
Well, it makes me curious about wondering, and I'm just going to keep trying the best I can.
And I really get that thing of not being enough for people. I think we all have it to certain degrees. Am I enough?
Mm-hmm.
I remember the Dalai Lama, he said, "Yeah, have I done enough? Have I done enough for people?" And maybe if we can give ourselves a bit of a break and go, yeah, I'm doing my best. I'm enough. Give me a break here.
All right.
Be
Thank
kind.
you.
Thank you.
And we have Brendan from the UK.
Hi, Brendan.
Hi, Josh.
Hi.
Oh, you can hear me, yeah?
I can, yeah. I'm doing well.
Sorry, I got a thing just come up on the screen.
I can hear you.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to go. There was a point in your talk there when you were talking about ceremony, and it was basically saying that Soto Zen is taking care of things and practicing ceremony and practice a ceremony until you reach a point where you feel you're able to respond appropriately to any situation. I'm kind of curious about that, and I haven't been a fan of ceremony all my life. It's only recently and that my relationship with it's changing. But I do see its value. I really, so sometimes when we say the meal verse, and you think, wow, it's really good to think where this food comes from, and you have a different sense of what you're eating when you really think about where it's come from and that kind of thing. So I just wondered what is meant by that. How, if you're in ceremony, how to respond. How is that teaching you how to respond? Is there a particular ceremony in mind, or just all ceremony? Do you know what I can think about with the food, especially? It's like how to respond to your food, for example, by doing that ceremony, I suppose, by giving it respect it deserves.
Yeah, I think so. Quite often we come to practice wanting to know about Buddhism or to improve our lives and to make less suffering, and so we come with that orientation, with a curative fantasy, which is good because it gets us to practice. But what often happens is a teacher will say, okay, I'd like you to take care of the bell. I'd like you to develop a relationship with the bell. And I'd like you to, as you did at the recent retreat, and I'd like you to hold the space, and I'd like you to support people to walk around the room. And you go, really? Is that it? And so um, there's something about trusting that following the schedule, um, treating things as sacred, both inside the Zendo and out, is a crucial part of this practice. And it's maybe not about. We do wonder, okay, is it about this, or is it just do it and see what happens, and do it again, and do it again, because the practice has gone on for centuries of doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay, yeah. Yeah, okay. So treating the ceremony as a line of inquiry
treat a ceremony as
of itself.
it's not an inquiry. Well, okay, it's more just do the ceremony. There's nothing you have to do, and I'm thinking this through. Just do the ceremony. Just follow and until you can see outside in the world that there are certain beautiful things. You see the sacredness in everything.
Yeah, so it sounds to me like something you have to practice. It can't quite be named.
It can't be named.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Suzuki Roshi said, to feel your being here in this place. is a very important practice.
Mm-hmm.
To know yourself, to feel yourself. This is why, to feel yourself in this place at a certain time, that is why we practice our way. So if you said that every place you went, you know, it would be, I think it would be an interesting practice to take with you, take with us. If you're in, you know, in the doctor's surgery, you know, to feel your being in this place is a very important practice. You don't want to be there, but you know, it's just a reminder of the continuousness of it.
It's almost, it sounds like I'm just trying to get it in a nutshell, Josh. I think, and I might not be able to, but it's almost like the ceremony is practice.
It is, yes, yes. That is my understanding of it, that it is a complete practice. Because when you come to the practice, you're not essentially asked to believe in anything. You're asked to do something with your body and your mind, with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I would, you know, be very curious to hear Flint's, my teacher's, take on this, because I'm kind of, you know, I'm on the edge of exploring this as a, you know, this is essential, and how do we, as people living lives in different houses with different people, extend this practice when we quite often, a number of people here won't be able to go to a zendo and get intimate with the bell. So what can they do?
Yeah, well, I suppose when I meditate, I just sit down and meditate. But you know, there's nothing to stop me from ringing a bell.
Well, you could include that in your practice. You could get a bell and you could start to build a ceremony around your sitting if you wanted
I
to.
will, I'll try that because
Yeah,
cognitively, I go, what's the point in that? Ringing the
absolutely.
bell. I'm just going to sit down and do meditating. So
Yes,
I'll do that.
of course. Your mind won't like it, or the mind will do what it does.
Yeah.
Just say to it, but we're going to do this.
Mhm. All right, I will. I'll do that, mate. I will.
Talk to us and say we're getting a bell.
Yeah, I'm going to try it and have a look. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And we can have more conversations with it about this because it's, you know, it's important thing to support each other in doing it.
Yeah, I've certainly seen the what's created when we do it as a group and the container that's created. But yeah, I don't carry that on my own. As I'm,
No,
but yeah, yeah, sure. I'm going to try it. I'm going to try that. Yeah, I'm try that.
yeah. Let me know how it goes.
Yeah, nice one. Yeah, then I won't feel alone with it. Then. Yeah.
Oh, then we'll both be doing it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brendan.
Nice one. Thank you.
And we have Gail.
Hi, Gail.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Good to be here. As I'm listening to everyone, I'm having some observations about a situation or situations that I've been struggling with, which is similar to what people have said in terms of the ebb and flow of connection and not connectedness, and then connectedness and not connectedness, and all that comes up in those spaces of that ebb and flow. And specifically when I'm in situations with difficult people that we'll call them family members. And so my protectors come up. I don't necessarily, I have a hard time connecting with certain people and don't want to be connected at that time, with my own protectors. So I notice some sadness and anger. What I want is to, I guess, still feel connected. And maybe it's really, I need to feel connected to myself in those moments when I don't feel connected to those people around me. But how to sort of manage the staying connected to myself, feeling protected, dealing with the sadness, and trying it's not that I'm trying not to be angry. If I'm angry, but trying not to take things personally, although it feels really personal. So I don't know. It's a question, but it's also an observation with a struggle that I notice. So
Yeah, I think you're expressing something that many of us feel. Someone said, you do your practice and then try it out with your family. see see how that goes. um,
right.
so that it is a really challenging place, a courageous place to be. That's the edge of something, the edge of practice. So it feels like you're right in the place where you can you can explore your practice in a challenging situation, which is painful, but it also feels like it's right. That's where it is. So I guess there's something I really like what you say about keeping connected with yourself, maybe talking with yourself, so that you can regulate yourself during these difficult times, and see what possibilities there are. Relationships are really tricky, and that's
Thank you. You got it. That was helpful for me to say what I said and to hear back what you said. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're right there with where the practice is. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So I think we've come to the end of our time now. Thank you everybody for being here and for coming up to. It's lovely to meet you, for coming up to meet me. So we'll just end with the 4 practice principles, please. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering. Holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher. Being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering. Holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher. Being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering. Holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher. Being just this moment, compassion's way. Very much, everybody. I wish you rich explorations, and look forward to seeing you when I'm next here. Thank you. Over to Maria. And thank you, Maria, too, for holding the space.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Josh, for those teachings and from the place from which you offer them. I think that's the most profound teaching that you offer me, is the place from which your teachings come from and the space you create in which to meet us all. So thank you so much for that, Josh. And thank you all so much for creating this space. I mean, it wouldn't happen without you, would it? And if you'd like to offer dana to Josh, then please do go to justthiszen.org/giving, and there'll be a place there for you to make a contribution. But thank you all so much. And if you'd like to continue to connect, please pop yourself into gallery view and I'll meet you for a further 28 minutes. Thank you all so much.